All right, guys, how you doing today? This is the SofaReal talk, and if you just give us a few minutes here, we are going to share the post, and if you don't mind sharing as well, and I'm going to get ready and start the intro so that I can pull Instagram in and start the show, which is about imprisonments that we tend to put on ourselves. And if it's something that you've done over the years and you're trying to get out, by all means, please watch. And like I stated, share. So bear with us for just one moment. Let's see here. Yeah, it's like I can only share a couple of times, or I'm gonna get put in jail again. Let's see. Okay. Okay. Almost done. Okay. No, let me do that. Okay. So leave me alone. All righty, Miss Whitney, I'm gonna go ahead and start the intro. So give me one moment. All righty. Good evening, guys. And today we have a lovely guest, an author, and she's about to introduce herself. You can go ahead. Miss White, did you get frozen? Oh no, Miss White.
Hello? Can everyone hear me?
I can hear you, but you're frozen.
Oh, I'm sorry about that. I understand that there were some weather conditions earlier that might be affecting my internet connection. So I'm sorry if the voice in the sync isn't the same as the video.
Uh,
But if you can hear me,
yeah, well, I can hear you. So you can actually go ahead with your
Whitney
introduction.
and LaRon, thank you so much for inviting me to this live stream right now for the topic of imprisonment, emotional imprisonment specifically. As the author of the book TruthSpeak, Some Real Reasons That Men and Women Don't Communicate, I'm happy to share my opinions on the various issues that we've been talking about. This is the
Awesome.
first book that I've had published, and I am ready to jump in as soon as you are.
Okay, cool. So, the we were stating in the background about your journey to this book was basically you said uh, it was 2016, right?
I've actually been writing since I was very, very young, but this
Okay.
particular book was published in 2016, yes.
Okay.
And right on the heels of that, I had a family tragedy, and it seems that that has not enabled me to move into the broad field that I wanted to move into. But I am still looking to share all of the information that I've compiled, the research that I've done, the experience that I've gained, the things I've seen, the observations, and everything to bring this guide together for how men and women can better communicate.
Oh, cool. All right. So, and if you guys, I haven't stated yet, by probably next month, I am going to schedule Miss Whitney again after I read her book. And actually, she wasn't supposed to see her until then, but I just thought maybe she would love this topic. So, how to find out if you are emotionally imprisoned? come across a couple of definitions that, well, one definition in general that stuck out for me is an emotional imprisonment is where you are denied the freedom to express your feelings and emotions. You cannot show your happiness, anger, irritation, um, dissent, and disagreement, and etc. So to hear that, is that something that you may agree with, Ms. Whitney?
I absolutely agree with the definition. And as we've
You
attached,
might have, I think you've been muted.
hello, can you hear me? Let me see. Can you hear me?
Yeah, it's one of those technical difficulty things going on with you.
Um,
wanna pop out and come back in?
can you hear me?
I'm gonna remove you and come back in. Can you hear me? I'm gonna remove her and bring her back in. Let's see.
Can you hear me?
No.
Are we still okay? Just a moment, please. Let me see what is happening.
Oh, you hear her just fine? Oh well, okay. Someone in the comments says they hear you just fine. I'm not sure exactly. Okay, so it's on my end then. Let's
Oh,
see. Uh, hmm.
testing 1 2 3. Testing
There
one.
we go. My bad. Okay, that was
Wonderful.
my end. I'm so sorry. I apologize.
It's no trouble at all. It's no
All
trouble.
right. So basically, I was asking, what is your take on that definition?
Most of the times when people consider imprisonment, it's a confining, it's a restriction, it's an inability to do those things that would naturally be what that person wants to do. And when we attach emotional imprisonment to that concept, it looks exactly like the thing that you described, the inability to express anger or happiness or irritation or disagreement and things of that sort. Most of the problems people have with emotional concepts is that they feel like emotional things are so abstract and you can't really identify them. You can't really touch them and handle them the way that you can with physical situations. So there's a lot more confusion about what an emotionally imprisoning situation would appear as.
Okay.
So to answer your first question very easily, so yes, I do agree with the definition that you've offered for what emotional imprisonment is.
Yeah, because if even on Facebook itself, if you can just randomly come across posts where you can really gauge if someone is locked in mentally, um, off of just small words or just constant posts that they're posting,
Mhm.
and or how I get some form of, just me personally, where when people get offended off of something that you may say,
Mhm.
and get very defensive,
Yes.
and so which comes to that next bullet point up under that, where self-evaluate, something that I don't feel people do enough of.
Mhm.
Um, Meeting my fiance and going through a couple of books that we've been reading together, and attending some of our church programs and whatnot online, it really has shown us how important it is to reevaluate not only self but a relationship altogether.
Exactly. Exactly. And because many people don't do that, I think that some people may not even be aware that they are in situations that are emotionally confining. On a broad application of the idea of emotional confinement, I want to take how society characterizes women who are in leadership positions. If a woman has a leadership component to anything she's doing, the perception is that she's bossy. But if a man is doing that same leadership quality, he is considered assertive or something more positive in terms of the leadership aspect of it. Now, the reason that that can become an emotional prison for the woman is that she might sit back. She might shine, she might turn her light down, if you will. She might do these kinds of things that she hopes would prevent others from having a negative perception of her. And
Hmm.
that in that application, the way that she is perceived in society could become a type of emotional imprisonment, a type of restraint, a type of holding back of one's freedom of expression because of the fear of reprisal and the fear of how that type of expression would be received.
I can definitely agree with that. Lisa stated, "Are you able to be your full and happy self in a relationship and alone?" And to jump on that, I think that's a lot of things that people have difficulty with as well.
Mm-hmm.
Uh, Something that I've come across here recently, past few years, about the 50-50 thing in a relationship.
Mm-hmm.
I've been able to throw that out of the door because something came across that made more sense to you being whole and the other person being whole, meaning you're bringing 100% of yourself and they're bringing 100% of themselves into the relationship. So it's 200 in so many ways.
Yeah,
And
absolutely.
but you and I get the concept of the 50-50 thing, but it makes more sense because now I see how definitely it's easy when someone says 50-50. You go into that relationship and you meet someone, and it's let's say hypothetically, they so-called complete you. They bring you that other 50% of yourself.
Mm-hmm.
Once that relationship is over, they take that 50% and maybe even more percentage of what you had, and you become even far worse than what you were when you first got in.
I absolutely agree with all of that. And the fallacy in thinking that anything you put half of an effort into will be successful is so widespread that people don't realize the simplicity in what you said and why it is right to bring your whole self if you're going to be in a relationship.
Mhm.
Now, to Lisa's question, are you able to be full and happy, your full and happy self in a relationship? And then we'll address the alone part of it.
Okay.
Full and happy in a relationship is the antithesis of emotional imprisonment. If you are with a person who does not block your growth or stagnate your growth, then you are more free and more able to express yourself and the things that are. But the problem is, again, with one of these stereotypes that society imposes upon women, that they don't impose upon men with the same emphasis.
Hmm.
Women are usually told that if you're not married by a certain age and having kids by a certain age, then you're worthless. The church gets into that too. So it's much difficult. It's really difficult for a woman to say, I'm 30, whatever. I'm not married right now. I don't have any kids. What is somebody going to look at me and find value in?
Yeah.
Because that's what she's asking herself. That becomes her emotional imprisonment, where she's not able to say, I want to do things that have nothing to do with raising kids. I want to do things that have nothing to do with this motif that people are trying to carve out for me. I want to do things that are reflective of the desires that I have. But if I do that, will somebody look at me and see wife material?
And I guess that's like one of the things that I have come across as well, where due to that, and I think that maybe this is the reason for the response where you get where so a woman may say, and it is to each his own. She may not want kids. She may not want to get married, but I think a lot of that pours into that decision of a woman saying these things.
Hmm.
And I I don't know, it's just I have daughters, and I failed them miserably
Oh.
as a dad when it comes to um trying to teach or raise them to not to imprison themselves. Now, when it comes to anything outside of if they allow someone else to come in, and then especially with them being an adult right now, that's something that they have to tackle on their own. But as kids, I definitely failed them, and it's just something that I'm trying to make amends with just being available whenever I'm needed to be called on right now, because that's really what you become as an adult, advice versus raising. So let's see, we have,
If I may jump in right quick, in
yeah,
connection with what you were saying, I know that so far I've been speaking a lot about a woman's experience in society. I
uh,
am not taking away from the idea that society imposes negative things upon men also. I'm just speaking to the idea that emotional prisons are broader than just interpersonal relationships. And once we deal with the broader notions of emotional imprisonment in society in general, then we can see that as a foundation for how a person can become emotionally imprisoned in an interpersonal relationship.
and it's true. And I was finna actually jump into that part, especially on the man aspect, because of myself. Like I stated, when the information that I provided you, where most people don't realize that before they're even considered dating, they were already in prison. Abandonment mostly starts at an early age, which stems from whomever the supposed caregiver was when they were a child. And for me to literally throw myself up under the bus, as a male, um, not taking anything away from my sister and my brother. It's just me. I needed to see that emotional bond between my parents, and I didn't get that. I approached my dad several times, which doesn't make him a bad person, that I didn't get the form of love that I needed to get me to where I am, where I feel that I am today. May have become a little bit earlier, but I had to realize that my parents themselves are in some form of imprisonment due to their past.
Mm-hmm.
And due to that, one, definitely, I think people imprison themselves with my mom wasn't there, my dad wasn't there. Now these are grown women and men, and you can't, after so long, you can't just like seriously continuously sit up here and say the reason why you're not on point is because of your parents
That's
failing.
right.
And that's something that I had to realize. I'm grown now. That means I can go read a book. I can go get counseling.
Mm-hmm.
Like I was stating to you off camera about my previous marriage, my me being diagnosed with MS and going basically to what you were just stating about you wasn't counting me out. I had so many imprisonments, and one of them was that society basically stated a man has to be the breadwinner. There's no such thing as a man being in the house and he's not the breadwinner or can't protect himself. And I was put in all of those situations.
Exactly. Yes.
And it allowed me to put myself in an imprisonment so, and I'm gonna use the word deadly,
Mm-hmm.
that
Agreed.
um so many times that like one of my exes, I came close to killing her due to the things that I allowed her to do to me, and my ex, things that I allowed to happen. for 11 plus years, I can't be mad at these people when I've allowed these things to happen. And it took me a minute to get out of that imprisonment and say to myself that, not saying that the other person didn't have wrong in it, but I definitely can't sit and just point fingers when I sat in it.
Mm, absolutely. I fully agree with everything that you've shared. And I think that where you began on the point of, yes, you recognize how some people's actions have had an impact on you, but at what point do you take responsibility for the person you are becoming? We've
Hmm.
had that discussion that revolved around not necessarily parental abandonment, but when people had been physically abused. Particularly if a man is abused, he'll grow up and then abuse women and so forth. And that cycle of abuse is said to continue. And his fallback is, I was abused, so now I'm the abuser. And then
Hmm.
that raises the issue just as eloquently as you said it. You do take account of things that have happened to you, but you also have to have some personal responsibility for the one that you are becoming, even despite those things. And you have to make that decided decision not to continue that. With a physical prison, people are behind bars, they see those bars. But in an emotional prison, the bars are invisible, but they
Yeah.
are as detrimental because they
Yes.
still stagnate process. And that's exactly when you said that your um, some of the ways that you had been held back, you felt were deadly. I fully agree that they are. There are people who will never grow beyond the circumstances of their abuse because they can't take it upon themselves to be different, to go
It's
different.
almost like, and like that's how you find yourself even in worse relationships, because you're trying to find someone else to fix it versus you trying to fix it yourself.
That, oh my God. Okay. When you're looking for someone else to fix your problems, that takes on the exact image that you've described it. Women do that also as far as church is concerned. When women are told, moreover than men, you need to be married to become whole. And you said earlier, if you are becoming whole in that marital situation and then that marital situation dissolves, it takes that piece of you plus a little bit more.
Hmm.
Here's the caveat, here's the fulcrum.
Okay.
While we understand, most of us are Christians, so I'm going to speak very generally to that point.
Okay.
While we understand that in general Christian principle, when you marry someone, that person is supposed to complement you. That person
Uh-huh.
is supposed to be your match in that sense. At the same time, the only thing that can truly make anybody whole is Jesus.
Okay.
The only thing that can truly take anybody apart from past abuses, past dysfunctions, past difficulties is greater than any human being that and our relationship to that human being. That being said, the value of a functional relationship cannot be understated.
Mhm.
You you can have a productive relationship in which you grow with a person. So
Mhm.
I'm not discounting that as a realistic possibility. At the same time, because that is true, so many people lean too heavily on it and begin to think that I will not be whole unless I get married. I will not be whole unless I find this person to fix me. I will not be happy unless I find this over romanticized relationship in which falls in my lap.
Yeah.
And it's those types of things, because they affect not only how you think, but what you say to people.
Hmm.
Those types of things are further deep. They're deep. I'm trying to say that they're rooted further deeply in people's psyche and they act on those things without recognizing. But if those things are poison and you're acting on poison, what's going to be the fruit?
Poison.
Exactly. And that's why it becomes important that people recognize certain situations are emotionally detrimental. They are emotional imprisoning, just like we were talking about. The title of it is so captivating because people don't realize that they can be in emotional prisons. Even though they go out and do whatever they want to over here, they
Mm-hmm.
go out and do whatever they want to over there. But when they come home, that's where the keys are locked down. That's
Yeah.
where they're alone with their thoughts. And that's where they feel all that they feel that holds them back from really being the person that they show everybody else that they are.
Yeah. Lisa also stated to initiate existing well
Entities.
entities.
Yes.
Thank you.
Entities.
Appreciate that. Existing as a whole union.
Yes, absolutely. That is the true picture of what a functional relationship should be. But so many times it's not. And there
I can definitely say that that's what I have with my fiance. It's something that we still have some things going on with each other,
Mhm.
and we are considered fixers, but we didn't come in this relationship trying to fix each other. We're growing,
Exactly.
and
Exactly.
anything that the other person has an issue with, we have come to each other with, hey, so I'm going through this.
Hmm.
In a sense of, do you possibly have any ideas or how you think I should approach this? It's not a sense of she's counseling me on a repeated basis and I'm counseling her, or she's being my mom and I'm being her dad, which a lot of people end up being in it. And it's something I've actually told some of my kids. If you find yourself being a parent to the person that you're supposed to be partnering with, that's not a good look.
No,
It's not.
exactly.
It's gonna be some resentment, and y'all gonna end up not liking each other and whatnot. But so being in prison,
Mm-hmm.
you do have relationships that can be fixed. So if this is a relationship worth fixing, you and your partner have to talk about the elephant in the room, no matter how hard it hurts. Discussing the means on how the relationship got to this point allows both parties to hear each other out. If
Mm-hmm.
heard, this opens doors to the healing process.
Absolutely. Absolutely. I fully agree with that statement. In a practical sense, most of the people, okay, no, I want to really say this carefully. In a practical sense, most people who impose emotional prison onto other people are
Mhm.
cognizant of it.
Yeah.
They know what they're doing.
Yeah.
Even if they say, I'm doing this because I was once abused, or if they say, it's convenient for me that this person lives the way I want them to, rather than have them live the way they want to. The person who is enacting that emotional abuse is doing it on purpose. And there's another fear tactic that I'm going to call it, that have you ever spoken to someone who gets angry at the slightest provocation?
Yes.
That is a weapon in the emotional abuse repertoire,
Mm.
because that shuts the person down from even wanting to address what might be whatever the concern is. There are a lot of women who have been subject to physically abusive relationships as well, but emotionally abusive relationships we're talking about, because that is his reaction. She'll say whatever she'll say, and he will blow it up 50,000 times out of proportion. And
Yeah.
so that she will not incur that wrath, she'll stop saying anything at all. And that is immediately her emotional prison.
Yeah.
Now,
You have a lot of responses. A stranger in your your own home.
yes,
Yes, yes, yes. Yeah. Hmm. Selfishness, control,
Exactly, exactly,
narcissistic.
exactly. Yes, exactly. And on the narcissistic aspect of it, a person might actually say, by their actions more than their words, I know better for you than you do. So you don't need to think. You just do what I tell you.
Ms. Lisa says she's basically been there, done that, verbal abuse. I've been there myself. It may be strange as a male, but yeah, I've been there physically and verbally to the point that I've been talked down to like I was a dog.
Hmm.
Um, and it didn't make it any better due to with my illness and me being unable to walk. So it was like something else that we stated a little bit earlier. I got content. Um, I didn't want to take the chance or the leap of faith
Hmm.
to find something new, and so I just soaked in the misery, and the resentment came where it just should have been something. Well, I see now more than anything, and I'm not mad at myself anymore, but I had to face myself, and that's something that people with the elephant in the room, where having that when you find that partner that you can actually seriously sit down and say, this is what you did to me, and I became this person, and let's try to see if we can figure this out, and it's open.
Hmm.
That is a possible great relationship, but it goes back to where you sit and you explain how a person hears something like that. Pretty much goes into the other bullet point in a few minutes, but they shut you down and say you don't know what you're talking about. I
Exactly.
didn't do that. It's you.
Oftentimes, that situation also plays itself out in situations of infidelity. When a person is in a relationship and they're recognizing certain things that their partner is doing differently than what they used to do, that arouses a suspicion. And when that suspicion is addressed, the person who is receiving the suspicion,
Hmm.
again, blows it out of proportion. This is in your mind. It's nothing like that. You're crazy. You're overreacting. And all this time, that person had been cheating. That is another tool in the emotional abuse, emotional imprisonment repertoire to
Yep.
undermine the concerns and the expressions of someone. It's one thing that when they express those concerns, you shut them down, but it's another one to receive those concerns, then invalidate them.
Hmm.
And all of those are ways that the person who has the emotional control exercises it onto the other person. Now, one thing you said, and I like to address it, I don't want to get too personal of a question or even a statement, really. But a minute ago, when you said that as a man you had been subjected to emotional abuse,
Hmm.
I heard you say that.
Yes.
I am not of the notion of the idea that only women can be abused. No, there are some women out there that are as toxic as any fist in your face.
Yes.
So, not saying any that women are all perfect and men are all dogs, or women are all dogs and men are all perfect. I'm not saying any of that. All of us are human, and all of us have areas where we need to grow, and all of us have areas that, unfortunately, some people may have found it convenient for them to take advantage of.
And
So,
yeah, that's pretty much what happened. The I now can sit and say honestly that the person knew that I was not gonna say gullible, but they felt that I placed myself in a position to where anything that they did would not be contested. But when it became contested, like you stated, they got angry.
that's right,
This
right.
just basically stemmed from um, their boyfriend coming and getting them from our house. Um,
Wow.
sex being forced upon. Um, me basically made out to be crazy versus the crazy stuff that the person was doing. And so I was so much in my head that, again, like I said, I allowed deadly things to happen. And something that I try to express to my kids, especially when you're at a young age, or especially when you hit around about that 15-year age, that this is that moment you have to be very cautious with the decisions that you make. Because even though your parents are still responsible for you, that thing that you're liable to do right now
Hmm.
can come and bite you
That's right.
later on, especially like when you on that top and on the top, and that's when it normally happens. And it's pretty much kind of what went on with me. And so yeah, I am a man that been raped before, so it's yeah, it can happen. And I was that person that I used to watch SUV. Yeah, I think there's SUV.
Law and Order.
Yeah, Law and Order, and they had a lot of
For
rape
you.
situations there. I'm like, man, how can a woman not sit and kick and scream and all of this stuff? And it took that one time for it to happen to me, which it was around about my high school years where everybody felt like I was kind of crazy, and I was paralyzed. I couldn't do anything, and it wasn't until then that I understood. Didn't want to understand, but I understood how, when you're presented with something so severe, your functions, and I timed out basically. Yeah, I don't even know if I passed out or not, but I couldn't do anything.
That is, I am very sorry that that has been your experience,
No,
and I don't want
I
to just
learned.
jump into what I'm saying right off of that. I want to be present in that moment of what you just said, and I also want to make the point that what you described is exactly what happens in emotionally abusive situations too.
Hmm.
Except whereas the physical hammer isn't the one coming down, it's that blow up that paralyzes people. It's that shutdown in some cases when they won't have any person, they won't have any interaction with that person. And when you talked about the development of the relationship between you and the person who emotionally abused you, you talked about it from your experience side of it. But
Hmm.
I know that there are people who have done that type of thing to people on purpose.
Yeah.
If you were in a position where you felt like less than because of what society may have been telling you, that was where you are. But there are people in society who will impose that on somebody when there is no less than for them to move forward from. I'm trying to say this in so many words. I'm trying to make the point that what society can impose upon me will make me feel like less than a person
Yes.
beside everything that society may do, an individual may try to impose upon me that I am not worthy, that I
Hmm.
am not a valuable person. And between those two um, captors, a person will really have to see something different. And that's
Yeah.
one of the reasons that there's so much. I'm going to use him as an example. And I know a lot of people do, but I just need a little bit of wiggle room here. When President Obama was elected,
Uh-huh.
people heralded him and looked at him as on a pedestal because finally we see in mainstream America a black man in a positive role. He's not a criminal. He's not a cheater. He's
Hmm.
not any of that. So
Hmm.
now here is this image. Why does that image become so important? Because dysfunction is normal to so many people that they don't realize it's toxic. If they eat cookies and every time they eat that cookie they get sick, they're going to begin to think that that sickness is natural, that
Yeah.
that is supposed to happen.
Yeah.
But when somebody comes along and gives them some fresh cookies that doesn't have any poison in it, they're
Yeah.
going to eat it expecting the poison and looking for it. And
Mm-hmm.
that poison is not there, they self-sabotage.
You know what?
First,
I'm gonna say, Jalissa stated that wouldn't this be trauma? And
yes,
that is trauma, but you said something that like self-sabotage. There's so many people that are in that find themselves in possibly great relationships that have been in bad relationships, and when they get in that good relationship, it's like, I don't want this because it's not toxic enough for me.
exactly, because it's not what they're used to. And I'm telling you, I don't know where the study was, or somebody said something that's the reason that some women, good girls like bad boys for some reason. And the relationship foundation or research behind that was supposed to be, they're supposed to be right about whatever that is. I don't believe that whatsoever. But for the point that I'm making right now, if a person is comfortable in dysfunction, then dysfunction begins to be what they continually expect.
It's like that again. So that is a form of imprisonment, and it's like they don't.
Yes.
They're so scared that it's one of those unknown things, and because it's unknown, you don't want to step in that deep water and have a perfect possible life.
That's right.
Stay in something miserable.
That's right. That is what we were talking about. The self-inflicted emotional imprisonment. This is another example of it, because all they know is that dysfunction. So that's all they look to, that's all they seek, because that's where they're comfortable. Dysfunction is their happy place. I know a man like that. And I specify that it's a man who's doing this because people, unfortunately, look at women and expect women to behave that way. They look at the times that women have been beat, have been lied to, have been cheated on, have been all these awful things. So she's broken, she's damaged, she's supposed to have trust issues. So when they capitalize it and put it all together like that, there's an expectation that a woman will self-sabotage. When she gets this good guy, she's not going to appreciate him because he's not knocking her around the way the other guy did, because that's what she knew.
Well,
the man who is doing this, he is not physically hurting the lady, but he is so comfortable in dysfunction that he sabotages his good relationships. And when I recognized that that's what he was doing, I tried to tell him. I told him, dysfunction is your happy place. You need to stop calling things, oh, life is just so complicated. Well, when you are in a relationship with a woman and you flirt with 20 other women and 5 of those women respond to your flirtations, you can't just fall back and say, oh, life is so complicated because all these women keep flirting with me. You're flirting with them.
Yeah.
Not taking responsibility for your own actions in that complication. If Beyonce finds out that this is what you keep doing, do you think she's going to be happy?
Yeah. Lisa says self-sabotage and emotional imprisonments are cousins.
Yes. They have a direct relationship. Absolutely. In the bloodline of dysfunction. That's right. Yes.
So if this is a relationship where you're able to talk like how we're openly talking, sometimes you have to agree to give each other space if time is needed so that them, or both can comprehend what you've just discussed. It. A lot of people want answers right now, or but you do have the people that just need to breathe, and or if it's something huge that you just offloaded, and it may be a moment, a couple of days, it might be a month or two.
Let me tell you how to get out of that time pinch. It's really simple.
Okay.
Oftentimes, for generalizing and stereotypical application, men are logical thinkers. We accept that, we go with that, and that's just the way it is. So when you tell a guy that you're having a problem, he either wants to solve it or wants to help you solve it right then and there. because that's how you deal with problems. You solve them. What else is there? There is no 1 and 2 aren't 5 here. That's just how it's supposed to go. However, if a lady is talking about a problem that she's having with something that he's done, he asks her, okay, well, how do you want me to fix it? What do you want me to do? Then she says, I don't know. I have to think about it. That's not enough for him, because his logical mind is working and he's thinking, she's telling me this is a problem, so this is what needs to be done to a problem. Fix it. Boom. And why don't you want to give me an answer to this right now? What's the holdup? Why don't you know what needs to be done? If it's clearly a problem, don't you clearly know how to fix it? And let's get it done. Okay? This is how you get out of that. Listen, here's the problem. I've told you what it is. You hear me? I need time to think about what your answer will be. Give me 2 weeks.
Oh, okay.
Because whatever time you say, that's going to fit into his logical motif of how things are working.
Okay.
That's going to make him say, okay, she has a problem. The solution is coming. She asked me to wait 2 weeks. In 2 weeks, that's when we can get it done.
Okay.
That structure makes sense to his logical mind. And if you can frame a problem, fit into that, then there is likely more cooperation. There is more cooperation likely than just to say we need some time and we don't know how much time and then we'll come back to it. No, we just give this some parameters and that'll help facilitate the positive discussion for both parties.
Yeah, Lisa's basically state what you said before you gave that lovely answer. You are expected to already have the answer when you present it. So what you just stated, I am not that, and I am so happy that I am a unicorn because I is I used to be weirded out about the whole situation, but I am and I'm not scared to even say it. I tell you about it. I'm happy. I'm in tune to what people call my feminine side.
Yes,
it allows me to understand. Like if I'm being, we both stated like one of the top things that we were not going to have was arguments. We can't. It need to. She shuts down, I shut down, and if we can't discuss it in a form of we have this thing that I learned from our church called fight night, to where if it's something that we can't schedule right now, we put a scheduled date on it, but that doesn't stop us from loving each other. It's just okay. So March 14th, we need to get down to the nitty gritty and figure out what the situation is.
I prefer it not be called fight night necessarily, but it's well received. Absolutely. I think that, when you said that you and your fiance don't have arguments, I love that, but I think that I want to stipulate specifically why. There is a misconception that you have a good relationship if you don't argue.
No, we have disagreements. That's the thing. That's different.
Exactly. That's the point that I want to bring out. That's exactly what I want to say. I want to say that two intelligent thinking people cannot be expected to always have the same opinion about everything.
No.
So there will be disagreements, but those disagreements don't have to become arguments. No. And the expectation that they do is one of those normalized dysfunctions.
Yeah. I love to hear people like, man, we've been in it for 2 years and we ain't argued yet. And that's supposed to be.
Have you dealt with anything in that time though?
Yeah, and that's the thing. A lot of them, when they say that, they have yet to scratch the surface of the small things. So
ironically, that becomes another form of self-imprisonment, because then, I don't want to say this because we're going to argue. No.
Jalissa says her and her husband argued every Wednesday and Sunday.
Okay. Exactly.
So to me, that would state that was purposely drawn at specific days where we were gonna argue. It was like, oh dang, it's Wednesday. Hey,
Here
we
we
so,
Oh my, wow.
well, to move on, and on that standpoint, when you're able to talk, that's great. But we do have those relationships where it's a detriment to your well-being. And one of the first bullet points was leave if you can. And the reason why I say leave if you can, because I was talking to this one person one day, and again, it's God positions. I say He commissions me to talk to people, just random people. And this one person, um, I don't even know how the conversation started, but he just opened up. I mean, just bawling, crying, explaining to me how imprisoned he felt in his own home that he allowed this person to come in, mistreating him and talking down to him, and possibly saying if he left, he would harm him and all this. And so I'm looking at him and I'm in disbelief, and I'm like, well, not to be inconsiderate of your situation, but aren't you at work? And he looked at me and he was like, yeah. I'm like, so that means you left the situation. So in so many ways you can still leave. And I said this to my fiance, and she brought up a valid point with that, where what's the second bullet point comes in is danger, because you still can leave, and there's such thing as a stalker. There's such thing as just people just being evil, and that's why I understand the point of paper trail
Mm-hmm.
that
Mm-hmm.
a lot of people don't do, because one, that they're scared to call the police and get this person in trouble, because they feel that if they start doing this, then it's going to cause more problems, and that causes an imprisonment.
That's right. Absolutely. Absolutely, it does. And I think that for some people, the ways of receiving help are seen as complications. And it's just like what you just described. If a woman is being abused, even emotionally, by her husband, and she calls the police or makes a police report, they are beginning that paper trail is going to be efficacious if it does rise to the level of a court proceeding for having them separate, especially if they're married.
Mhm.
But you're absolutely right that sometimes people are afraid to do that. The leave if you can. Um, when you say there are people who are convinced that they can't. There,
He just basically just said self-imprisonment makes you feel you have to stay because they may harm you, or society will think ill of you.
yes, absolutely, absolutely. Society is more ready to think ill of a woman who leaves than a man. Because let's say you have a situation where a man and a woman are married, he has cheated, and now all of a sudden it's her responsibility to forgive him and keep the family together. Where was his responsibility to keep the family together while he was cheating? Nobody asked that question. But she's the one whose burden it is now to keep the family together and forgive him and keep the marriage together when he's supposed to be the head of the household.
This is like so weird, because again, I found myself in the opposite position. And I'm like, I'm still weirded out about the whole situation. Well, with my illness in itself, it allowed me to actually become the house husband in a sense.
Mm-hmm.
And actually, those roles, regardless, would still change in that aspect. I'm gonna be honest. If I can go back and show and it become a movie, people will probably sit and say, "Dang, that stereotype of she wore the pants and I wore the dress" type thing from the beginning of the whole situation. And um, I don't, you don't hear it a
Right.
lot, but there are a lot of men in that situation
Yes,
right now,
I
and
believe that. I
and
don't doubt that whatsoever.
and they can't. It goes back to what Lisa was kind of saying. You can't leave because you don't want to look like you less than a man.
Exactly. Yes. Exactly. And that speaks exactly to the bars that society constructs by which we imprison ourselves, because
Hmm.
we don't want to do those things that we know we need to do for ourselves, but how will we be viewed if we do that?
Yeah.
And that then we get to what I like to call breaking points. People have thresholds, and it's at some point when you cross that threshold, it stops mattering what other people will say about you, because they're not the ones waking up in your everyday. They're not the ones going through the things that you go through all the time, and you have to shake them off. You have to just say, listen, I know that this is what it's going to look like to you, but until you have been where I am, you
Yeah.
don't understand the importance of not being here anymore.
Yep.
So I completely understand you. I completely understand you.
Yeah. So, the end point of this is basically seeking self-love instead of making the love of another the reason for your happiness. Not even another person, another thing, another ideal. Um, Society in itself and the rules that they impose on us
That's right.
can sometimes just basically just throw us your self-love out the window.
Absolutely.
And before we end, guys, it was just one thing that we wanted to hit on just a little bit. So we may go over the time just a little bit, where everybody's probably already hit on this conversation throughout the night, day, weekend,
Mhm.
the Derek situation. And I know people are wanting to say this person is wrong and this person is right, and he shouldn't have did this and whatnot. I find myself, especially when stuff like this airs, I kind of go and do a little bit extra research myself, because that saying that everybody says, there's always three sides to a story. um his, hers, and that middle point. And I
That's
think
where the
everybody
truth is.
focused on Mr. Jackson, which he is definitely wrong. Now, don't get me wrong. He's definitely wrong. But this show that we're doing now kind of shows me personally. I feel, definitely going back and doing a little research with her and already watching him a little bit. I had always felt that there was something else going on behind the curtain with him. But I feel both were imprisonments of past lives, and definitely after looking into her, as like I really personally, and this is my opinion, so nobody get offended. I really feel that he knew the damage, definitely with it being off and on, and the fact that no help for me, I seemed, was done because he was out doing what he was doing. It's almost like he didn't care.
What you're speaking to is exactly where my overarching premise about the whole situation rests. 70-30, I'm convinced that he'll do it again.
Huh?
Yeah, 70-30, I'm convinced that he'll do it again. And this is why. When he talked, I only saw two recent videos and a smattering of his videos from the past. I knew his name and what he did, but I wasn't completely familiar with his whole theology.
Mm-hmm.
The way he talked in the video talked about how he surrendered to God and did all of these things, and this whole conversion experience happened. He overlaid that timeline still after she found out and left. I feel like everything he's doing now is the biggest "I'm sorry I got caught" in the history of "I'm sorry I got caught."
Mm-hmm.
Does that mean once a cheater, always a cheater? No, not really. It really depends on the person and how they receive the gravity of the wrong that they have committed. And when they come to that moment that they need to change their behavior, whether or not the person that they hurt knows that this is what's happening.
Mm-hmm.
He's not there by anything that he said in those two videos. So by grace, maybe I'm wrong. There is that 30% that he really has learned his lesson and he won't do this again. But 70% based on the things that he has said, the behaviors that he has shown, the things that he has done, he's given her access to his accounts now, which she didn't have before. He's given her access to his social media, which she didn't have before. All of that could have been done.
Yes.
But he didn't because he knew what she would find if she had it. So all of this looks to me like, I'm sorry I got caught. What do you need? If you need for me to be converted, you can watch me pray 3 times a day. Here we go.
What I found,
church loads of people who can fake looking like a Christian. Genuine experience does have its own imprint. I'm not saying that a genuine experience can be fake. I'm talking about looking religious enough to convince people who cannot read your heart.
mm-hmm.
And that's where we are with this situation.
With a lot of them, a lot of the social relationships and couples are, and again, it goes right back to the how society is playing, and we get so caught up and imprison ourselves on thinking that that's what I have to be, that's what I have to do, and the reason for me and my fiance to kind of start up our podcast for introducing healthy relationships, not saying that we are just like perfect, because we're not. And I think that's the niche of a genuine conversation on that. I have no reason to sit and say I'm this particular person, and then once the camera goes off, I go upstairs and then I'm wailing on my fiance, or mistreat my kids, or just go straight out the door, or calling and talking to someone else outside of that. And that's my thing. It's sad that, because once I looked into her, she already felt it. And you can look at her information that she like publicly posts, that she already felt it. It was like, so, and I didn't know that part, which you just stated, that he gave access to all his information now. So she didn't have it. So she felt it. And makes you wonder if she went after it. And if she went after it, did he shut her down, like we were stating earlier in the live, where when you get confronted by the elephant in the room?
Exactly. Mm-hmm. It would have been easy, I think, for him to shut it down, because as far as I understood from both of their videos, the only ones I've seen, as I mentioned, what she described was off and on, 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 until 2016 when they finally got married. That was supposed to be the point where all of his activity was supposed to have come to an end. So if she did go to him and say, I feel that you're doing these things, I'd like to be more involved, I'm looking and feeling all these different ways, all he had to do was say, I thought I told you that when we got married, all of that was done. Don't you believe me? Don't you believe I love you? What's the problem with you coming to me with these suspicions if you believe I loved you? And in 2016, when we got married, all of that was supposed to be put to bed. That's an easy enough thing for him to say to stop her from being suspicious about the things that he knew he was doing. That's why it looks like to me 70% this is going to happen again, because I don't
like you said, and like she was saying, that's sad and not fair to either of them. It's not for the sake of the relationship or as individuals. He shut her down, suppressed it, and capitalized on it. Basically manipulation, and that's how I really feel about the whole thing. However you guys feel, hopefully I don't hurt anybody's feelings. I just really think that she was practically used, and I say that, which I don't take any fault away from her. Again, like I said, once you really go in depth on both of them, you see that they were childhood or maybe high school sweethearts.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm. And he seemed like he played football. Oh, it's a lot of pictures of him on her page. And but
Not a
She
lot of pictures of her on his page.
that part I haven't I really didn't go on his per se to see about that, and that was something I actually was going to do as well. But I don't know, hers just really stood out due to um she noticed he liked pictures of other women and his attention to other women. So she went and had her face beat, her identity changed. But then when you look at early photos on her Instagram, she's a church going person. She was in church, but she posted one picture where she had this side of her hair straightened and this side looking like she just got out of the bed and humidity was high as heck. And she basically stated, this is how I've been living.
Mm.
And I
Whoa.
mean, like, just constant. Like, it was like after post after post after post. You would me. I look at it as it was like post suicidal in a sense. And my thing is, you being the person that you were and how you was talking, you didn't see that in your own fiance, your own wife.
Whew. Wow. Yes, exactly. 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 And that's that type of, you can't even call that a mishap. I think
Mhm.
you're absolutely right that he knew that there was some brokenness there and he capitalized upon it. In some of the earlier videos that I saw him make about why women date bad men or why men treat women badly and all of these types of things, I wondered how much of his fan base was based on women romanticizing the idea that there could be a man who actually has his stuff enough together to say the kinds of things that he was saying. And I think she was a part of that. I think she I think there was some consideration on her part at least that yes, he's this guy, but he's mine. So that's,
Mhm.
you know, some part of a dynamic that she's dealing with. How much that played into her decision to go back to him after this 8, 9, 10 year, 8, 9, 10 months, years worth of time that she was supposed to have been apart from him after she found out about his most recent adultery. I don't know
Mhm.
that part, but I do agree that there's some background work on her side that a lot of us probably don't see in the brightest light, because right now the focus is what he's done to her and why she stayed with him. Even if she left for a little bit, she still came back. And if I could speak to that for like half a second,
Mhm.
what she said in the video was that she wanted a confirmation that he was surrendered to God and would do everything God's way in order for her to come back to him and begin to work on their marriage again. My issue with that becomes for her to be trying to do right by having a relationship with God and putting that relationship with God above this marriage. I don't know if there is any more genuine thing she could have asked for God to be involved in both of their lives. The problem with that becomes, again, if he knew that that's what she was looking for, it would have been easy enough for him to show that to her. And here we go. She's gotten it. She's back now, and she wants to underscore the fact that for a while she did leave, but most people are going to see that she came back anyway. And it's going
Uh-huh.
to paint the picture again that men can cheat on their wives can know about it. They have their tantrums, they do whatever they need to do, and they still stay.
So
That's a
I'm gonna say this little bit, just this little bit, that she posted. I was bitter at the hand the hand that life had dealt me. Dad rejected me. Daddy died. rape, voluntary sharing of a man, cheated on, taunted by women, and the list goes on. Resentful of all of um, resentful of all of the above, plus some festering relationship issues that piled up over years of me voluntarily keeping silent, which fed the shady and murderous demons and kept my spirit, man, gauge chained and bound. So when I read, it was definitely when I read this one. Like I said, it is some dark stuff on here, and I get it that she's very spiritual because she talks about there were a lot of demons inside of her. And my thing is, he knew this. He knew she was church going as well.
Mhm. That's
So
why this point on the conversion looks like I'm sorry I got caught. What do you need to see type of thing? Especially when he overlaid it over the timeline. He said that everybody's talking about something now that happened almost a year ago. But what he also said was that this last year, he's been doing everything he can and surrendering to God and looking for God to do it God's way and not his own. That's the timeline that set up that he's only been doing this since she found out about the affair that made her leave.
yeah,
That's the timeline that he put out there. And I'm not saying any of this again to condemn him to hell.
yeah,
30%, I
yeah,
could be dead wrong. I
yeah.
recognize that. But based on the way things are looking, and Lisa, I saw your comment earlier that you said that he will do it again if he can get away with it. He's done it for how many years that he's gotten away with it? And the whole societal position for her, your husband has cheated, you have your fit when you find out, and then you go back.
So I'm gonna say this right, and we're gonna go and kind of go ahead and end it. But someone showed another video that he did here recently, and he's in his car like he always is. But now you see you see a baby seat in the back. Like, where's this baby seat been?
That's all this time. He could have made his fortune under the understanding that he was married, that he had a family. And
He probably would have made more money.
that that makes me feel worse about what he's done, because not only is he manipulating his wife into silence, but now he's preying on the emotions of women who he knows he can't fully commit himself to.
Yep.
What kind of a person does that? Oh, I think we said narcissist.
Yep.
Is that what we said?
Yep. Yeah. So, Miss Whitney, I do appreciate you coming on, and I think this was a grand show. I
Absolutely.
will basically share it with you, and if you want to post it as well, by all means, feel free. And like I stated, I'm going to order the book by the end of the week. Hopefully, I can get it soon so I can go ahead and read it and bring you back on and do the interview that I wanted to do with you and to get talk a little bit more about your journey with. And what's the name of the book once again?
The book is called TruthSpeak: Some
Okay,
Real Reasons Men and Women Don't Communicate. The
awesome, awesome.
implication that they can't is very difficult for some people to overcome. But the idea behind everything in my book is illustrated to show that they can if they try hard enough with the skills they already have.
Yeah. What? Say it one more time, because I don't think they heard you in the back.
Complications between men and women can be overcome with the skills they already have if they try hard enough.
Mm, 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 mm.
And this book is available at the website on the screen there, evelynwhitney.com. And if you like I'm looking forward to coming back at the time after you've read. And
Yes.
I am open to any follow-up questions if any of your viewers would like to reach out to me via Facebook or Evelyn Whitney Books at gmail.com.
Okay. Well, again, we totally appreciate it, guys. And by all means, please share great information. Um, and if you're wanting to dive deep in some relationship conversations, by all means, hit me up and we may can come up with a topic to talk about. We totally appreciate it. You guys have a great day.
Bye.